Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my personal podcast tour of the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe. The Smiling Ghost, 1941. Haunted house spook-the-inheritor comedies following the plot of The Cat and the Canary were 10 a penny in the 30s and 40s. Warner Brothers' B-movie The Smiling Ghost was no exception, but is amiable enough within the formula. It was directed by Louis Sellers, a veteran of the studio's house style of crime thrillers, including Crime School in 1938 starring Humphrey Bogart, who was billed below his rambunctious co-stars, the Dead End Kids. Bogart was also connected to one of The Smiling Ghost's writers, Vincent Sherman, whose screenplay for The Return of Dr. X in 1939 gave the actor his only horror genre part. Co-writer Crane Wilbur went on to pen House of Wax for Vincent Price. Though this film's storyline doesn't fully make sense, the duo craft some sassy one-liners. The plot centers around tall, gauche chemical engineer Lucky Downing, who is offered a much-needed $1,000 to pose as the boyfriend of an eligible society heiress for 1 month, unaware that her eligibility is due to her previous 3 husbands falling victim to a ghoulish figure nicknamed the Smiling Ghost. To his credit, Downing sticks around even after uncovering the real backstory to try and solve the mystery. In the light leading man role, Wayne Morris has a gangly or-shucks persona that fits well and convinces when called upon to use his fists. As comic relief backup to strengthen Morris's character, Willie Best is drafted in and endures the poisoned chalice of being Clarence, the resident Negro comic of lily-livered buffoonery. We last saw him doing the same as the butt of Bob Hope's gags in 1940's The Ghostbreakers. And like in that film, the only benefit to him is the decent chunk of screen time he gets. This is just as well when, for example, he is admonished by the butler, Norton, for hiding in the coal cellar. How do you expect anyone to see you in there? Actually, Alan Hale's Norton is one of the few original touches in the film. He plays the butler without any of the supercilious formality normally assumed, instead being a blunt blue-collar type who could just as easily be a plumber or a street cop. Film buffs may recognize Hale from his memorable Little John in The Adventures of Robin Hood, among other humorous roles. Downing is indeed lucky since he is caught between 2 women subtly catfighting over him. There is the aforementioned Eleanor Bentley Fairchild, Alexis Smith, a self-possessed blonde siren of means, and the down-to-earth brunette reporter Lil Barstow, an equally beautiful yet honest Brenda Marshall. At one point, Eleanor skewers her rival with the delicious, "Every look you give him, you could pour on a waffle." The family home also encompasses a gaggle of dinner-suited sybarites, such as Eleanor's permanently sozzled cousin Tennant, Richard Ainley, and a vivid crackpot turn by Charles Holton as Great Uncle Ames, who has a disconcerting passion for manufacturing shrunken heads out of suitable subjects he meets. Seeking a final piece for his collection, and I quote, "the perfect negroid type," Ames takes a special interest in Clarence. "How would you like to stay with us for a long, long time?" Introductions over, Downing's luck holds long enough to dodge the blade of the killer after Tennant asks to be given back his own room. The inhospitable drunk is unwittingly mistaken for Downing by the titular fedora-wearing menace, bearing a toothy grin and mad-staring eyes. Tennant is later found, alive and unconscious, as the tenant of a cellar trunk. For some reason, the ghost does lack that all-important killer instinct. We learn that although his first victim, John Eggleston, drowned, and number 3 died of a snake bite, the second, Paul Myron, David Bruce, also survived, albeit placed in a permanent iron lung. When Downing and Barstow visit him, he shows them a photo of Eggleston, insisting he is the ghost, back from the dead to haunt all future suitors. Downing later finds himself attacked by the grinning ghoul and dumped unharmed in a coffin, making the ghost's half-hearted advances even more perplexing. Eventually, the family decide to lure the ghost out by staging a phony wedding for Lucky and Eleanor at midnight. There's an amusing exchange during the nervy wait when Lucky makes awkward small talk about the cruel treatment of Mary, Queen of Scots. Lee Patrick's Aunt Rose fires off the zinger comeback, "Yes, isn't it? I didn't think the news had got around." For extra harshness, the ghost appears and abducts Barstow. Lucky grapples with him manfully until the killer is crushed by a disused boat. Barstow remarks that their assailant doesn't look or sound like Eggleston somehow, a hunch borne out when he is unmasked as assumed Iron Lung occupant Paul, in another of those denouements that Scooby-Doo would almost parody later. His vendetta is explained as the insane jealousy of a man rejected by his wife for being a cripple, but not how he can free himself from the confines of his seemingly necessary apparatus, a clanging error by the writers. Even more inexplicably, Downing bursts in too late to save Clarence from Ames reducing him to a presented shrunken head, and yet his valet appears safe and sound as well. America's impending entry into World War II, courtesy of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor that December, gets a sobering look in at the end after Downing realizes that Barstow is the one for him. Pessimist Aunt Rose clouds the rosy prospect with the sour, "Why worry? He'll probably be drafted right in the middle of the honeymoon." Ironically, in real life, Morris would soon leave Hollywood to enlist. He found that his size initially ruled him out of cockpit flying, until an Air Force relative pulled strings, enabling him to spend the rest of the war becoming a decorated Hellcat fighter pilot. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe.